And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy where we have a casual and informal discussion about Star Trek. And today's episode is Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, episode number. I think it's 15. I can't remember. But it's called Devil's Due. And it comes after the last one that we talked about. So,
It's
whatever number.
episode 13 of season 4.
13. Hey, how appropriate that it's the 13th episode if we're going to talk about superstitions and all that kind of fun
I'm
stuff.
not sure that was planned.
You never know. I'm
But you
sure
never know.
afterwards we'll look it up. We'll see if it's on one of the memories. Uh, or we'll just ask Larry name a sec. My ears went down. They went into like attack mode here. Do you
Oh
want to do
god.
this summary or should I do the summary?
No, I did last one.
Okay, but that was
Well,
Star
I
Trek
didn't do the
Discovery.
last. I did Discovery.
You did Discovery. All right, fine. Um, basically, there's a distress call, as there always is, from a science lab that's located on this planet called Ventax 2, and
Standard
the
morning.
and the scientists who are on the planet are feeling very threatened because the people of Ventax are going batshit crazy, or apeshit crazy, whichever crazy is worse. And
Vintex shit crazy.
Ventax shit crazy. See, your mind is so much cleverer than mine.
Oh
But
wow.
anyway, so they go Ventax shit crazy and are threatening the scientists. So the Enterprise races to go and save them, but they're only in time to save the lead scientist. The rest of them are being held hostage by the Ventaxians, and Picard and crew quickly find out that the reason is because they are afraid that their version of the devil has returned to claim and enslave the Ventaxian people as hers or hers. Yes, not his, but that's up for debate here.
It's
It's going to enslave the the Ventaxian people, um, and so the Ventaxians believe this in complete earnestness, and so they're just out of their minds with it. So Picard, who seems, rightly flabbergasted by the idea, uh, is suspicious. This can't be. He's suspicious, so he starts to investigate, and he finds that yes, truly, there is someone who fits all the descriptors of Ardra, the Ventaxian devil. And they seem to be able to do things like cause quakes, make the Enterprise disappear. Basically what we've seen the Q do, sort of. This god or devil can do similar things. But for some reason, Picard thinks it's all a trick. So he pushes her to the point where she finally gives in to a trial, and at the trial he looks to be losing, but at the last minute, Geordi, who's been investigating the whole situation along with Data, come up with a clever way to show that Ardra is in fact not a supreme being, but a person with fancy technology who's taking
what?
advantage who's taking advantage of clearly a very gullible civilization. And all is well. I think that's about it as far as how to
That's
summarize this
about it. Yeah.
episode.
Sounds good. Sounds
So
good.
what'd you think of it?
Um, it's it's a nice episode. It's not one of the more important episodes, I would say. Um, but it is. I mean, okay, the theme is kind of horrible when you think about it. She's going to enslave the planet and what have you, but it is lighthearted, I found. There's a lot of humor, be it in some of Worf's lines. Did you say beautiful, sir? Data trying to be all like a judge, but having trouble because he's talking to his captain. And even her, Ardra, the person that's impersonating Ardra, has some pretty funny moments with Picard as well. So it's kind of a light-hearted
Yeah.
episode, even though it is a terrible thing to think about, like enslaving an entire race. But
I know, and I wonder why they chose to go this way with the episode, because I agree with you. It's very lighthearted. There's a ton of gags, but it's also a very ridiculous situation because I just can't imagine a civilization that's advanced as the Ventaxians seem to be. I mean, they even rejected technology and like created peace on their world, and like they have like a harmonious
mm,
civilization. Yet they're so superstitious and so like ready and willing to believe that Ardra is real and has returned just based on a few, earthquakes and things like that. So I guess, yeah, I didn't think of it that way when I was watching it, but it is kind of a humorous, ridiculous
I
episode.
think it's more of a mockery or a mocking of us,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
we do seem very advanced in certain, like, I would say some of the countries are advanced. So as a race, we're getting along. But of course, if there was some sort of godlike figure to appear representing any or all or whatever religion that they wanted, it wouldn't take much for people to believe. I mean, we have mass suicides for like 2012
Well,
on
yeah,
our
like
planet.
the
So,
yeah, and the
I mean,
Joan, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, you're right. That's true. It does speak to an aspect of ourselves. I guess I just don't want to believe that that's like a quality that humans share with the Ventaxians. But you're absolutely right.
yeah,
It's
I
it's
I agree.
it's
It's
like
okay,
uh,
for all the opinions that people may have regarding religion and religious figures and what have you, um, and whatever your beliefs may be, I would hope that you would at least question any kind of personality that would just pop up out of the sky. I mean, we as humans, I mean, some people believe in God, some people don't. It doesn't matter. If someone just appears and claims to be God, then at least,
wait,
think about
wait.
it.
So you're saying by that rationale, maybe, just maybe, if someone were to appear and claim to be president of the United States, maybe it's not true, and we just need Captain Picard to take him to court and show that he's not actually the president.
Well, I mean, he would send angry tweets to the Federation. That's for sure.
Could you
Hashtag
imagine?
sad, sad.
um, the episode does have a lot of charming moments, as you said, and particularly moments I liked a lot because it's the second time we see Captain Picard. Is it the second or maybe the third time we see Captain Picard kind of coaching Data through a performance, and this time he's doing a Christmas Carol and he's playing Scrooge in the beginning. What did you think of that scene?
I'm troubled by. Okay, I've never been a fan. I've never been a fan of the kind of acting scenes that they give Data. But I think it works on the long term, because by the time you get to Nemesis or the end of the TNG arc, Data has fully discovered his humanity. Um, be it thanks to technology with the emotion chip, or
It's
this kind of
funny you
stuff that
mentioned
he's doing.
the emotion chip because
He's talking about
we
emotion.
right, but we see here they're talking about fear
Mm.
specifically, and that's like kind of the underlying, I guess, theme. There is the study of that emotion, but then funny enough, in Generations, when he gets his emotion chips, the thing that messes up the whole situation, that ruins the day, is that Data can't get over his fear when he's
Mm.
on the Armagosa space station. Where normally Soren wouldn't have stood a chance had Data not activated his emotion chip
Mm.
in that
I mean,
in that part there. So it's
which
interesting.
ties into this episode. I think that's why they chose that scene specifically, or that they had him try and understand fear in that teaser, because then it directly correlates to the episode where you have this entire population, or at least most of it, completely blinded by their fear.
Yeah.
Um,
I I I thought that like Counselor Troy in the one scene that it kind of hit me how like crazy they are down there. She said that the anxiety had risen to points where people were actually contemplating, like committing suicide. And it's
Well, that makes
like
me think about her in general because even when you're like, okay, you're in orbit of a planet, and there isn't any sort of impending doom, but there's what? Okay, we'll say 7 billion people like on Earth. How many people are trying to commit suicide every second, right? And
I
you have
know
to
it's
live
good.
with all those thoughts. God, you want to shut those out.
Yeah.
You don't want to be sensing what's going on that planet because any
But
planet
that's
would be horrible to live next to.
yeah,
She has
it's
to do
true.
that. I mean, I would assume no one's committing suicide on the Enterprise.
Hopefully not, but you never know. They never did.
But I mean,
I don't think has Star Trek ever even tackled that topic. I can't even think about it.
I'm sure, but we're just stupid because we
Not
don't
we're
remember
not
anything
thinking
about.
about it. But she must have a way to like filter it just the same way that we do when we're in a crowded room and we're trying to listen to our friends, what they're
The old
saying and
LaForge explanation of how he uses his visor. Fair enough. Fair enough. But then she's an empath. So she has feelings coming through, not necessarily
right.
words as such, unless they're like thrown at her.
Right,
So
it's
you know,
interesting. She has to interpret it, unlike her
mm,
mom, who can just know exactly
yeah.
what people are thinking. It's interesting. She still has like a filter or a layer there.
I found myself knowing this episode quite well for some reason. I mean, I watched them. I watched TNG and Voyager as a child on repeat. But for some reason, this episode is one of those episodes where I can just throw out the lines as they're saying them.
Oh wow.
I don't know why. I don't know why this episode specifically. I don't know why it would interest me as a child. But
Well, I can tell you that I remember this episode differently. So this is the first time I've seen the episode in probably 10 years. And I think that my last time watching this episode, I probably didn't just to give kind of like a little landscape real quick. I watched TNG when it first aired religiously every Saturday or
mm,
whatever day it was, I forget. But it's like whenever the new episodes would come on, our family sat and watched it, and that's fine. And I remember this episode from that viewing, of course. Then when they came out on DVD, I bought all the DVDs and watched it again. But I was doing other things, like inevitably as you do when you're marathoning a show, especially with like 22 episodes. At times, I would have probably have been also talking to someone or like on, possibly on the internet. I don't know what I was doing, but I don't remember the last time I watched it being like taking note of it at all. I thought like, oh, it's just another, it's one of those ho hum episodes that has an interesting surprise at the end. But once you know the surprise, you're like, oh, whatever. Picard's gonna reveal this, and it's all gonna turn out
well,
well. Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, so this time watching it, knowing that, I kind of way where I was like, well, let me actually try to analyze. And I can't show you. Well, I could show you my notes, but there's like I took a ton of notes for this episode, which I don't even give that courtesy to like really
I
good.
also come. I also come prepared. Starfleet boy.
But that's the odd thing is like, so when I dived in, I went on so many crazy mind tangents. I'm not going to include nearly all of them, or thoughts like based on
Fair
like some of
enough.
the themes in this episode. But the thing that kept standing out to me for some weird reason, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this, but it's the way Picard keeps calling her the woman. Like,
Oh,
what the
really? I
hell does
didn't
that?
notice that. Okay,
You
I
didn't.
didn't even notice that.
He's like several times. He's like the woman, like really angry, like like if she's like really stressing him out. And I'm like, what's
I
that
didn't
supposed
notice
to
that.
mean? That's so funny. I was like,
Is
what
that
is
just
he
him having an inherent problem with women in
with
general?
women? I mean, he does.
Especially those that he. Okay, let's be honest here. He's attracted to her. Right?
Yeah.
He claims that he isn't. He's like, I will not succumb to your trickery and what have you. But okay, he's kind of turned on because she's powerful and she's playing with him, and she's kind of like Vash in that way.
Yeah, there's definitely a quality of that there.
She's like a female Q essentially,
Yeah.
and I mean that's an attractive idea. Um,
Totally.
and so I think he just doesn't admit it. So maybe he was playing it. Maybe Sir Patrick Stewart was playing it in that way, kind of like I'm angry and pissed off at this chick. So the woman, I don't know,
The
but
woman, yes.
I didn't notice that, to be honest.
I guess that's like Royal Shakespearean for saying chick. Like the woman is the way that like a Shakespearean actor would say this
It's
chick.
it's
So
it's the disrespectful way, is it?
yeah, exactly. So um I mean
Acquire currency and disregard the woman. But
it's funny that you would point that out though, because in Sherlock Holmes, one of his foils is Irena Adler, who he also refers to as simply the woman. And so I think that there might be
maybe,
something to it with English people. So
maybe.
British audience, please chime in with your thoughts on why Patrick Stewart chose to play it that way, and if there's a deeper meaning to the woman in British culture than maybe we Americans and non-Americans alike can glean.
Well, okay. There's something that I noticed in Picard, and he only does this once. This isn't like a recurring thing. It's the moment they realize that the ship that's cloaked, he automatically assumes
It's
it's
a
a
Romulan
Romulan.
cloaking device. Yes,
And I was like,
I
why?
noticed that
Why?
too. Yes,
And then okay, so
that was on
Geordie
my
just kind of
list.
goes
It's
off.
on my questions
Okay,
list. That's
wow.
awesome.
Okay, well, Geordie just goes off like and says, "Yeah, it's a pale copy or whatever." But he doesn't really think twice about why he's saying Romulan. Why does he automatically assume it's a Romulan cloaking device? I mean, we know Klingons have cloaking
The
devices. There
the
must be
only thing
other
I could,
races.
yeah,
It's like
and that is
he's
actually
so
a funny
fixated
thing.
on the fact that she's a bad woman. Then it's like, oh, she's evil. It must be Romulan, right? I don't know.
It's
It
very,
was
it's very telling in Picard. I agree. Like there's something there. There's something there, and so it is a curiosity. I wonder if that's just that's
in a
definitely
funny
something.
way. It relates back to on Earth nowadays. People will kind of default to, well, they defaulted to Russian before. Now they'll default to Arab. In certain situations as being
Well,
the
and it goes
bad
back and
guys of
forth.
the Earth.
It goes back and forth. The Russians are kind of on thin
There's
ice again. Yeah, it's
North
like,
Korea as well is a popular one, is trending, as being the bad guys of I don't know. It's just it was. I noticed that it was funny. It's like, why Romulan?
well, there's this idea, I think, that like, especially I think people who watch shows like Star Trek's pretty singular, so there's not many shows like it out there. But I think that like once you've been exposed to the idea that like there's really no reason for the world to be at war, or like for like all these like silly things that we fight about as humans, it's true. Like things like that kind of like lose their, you know, their importance in
Mm.
at least in my personal experience. I'm like, can't we all just like get over it? Let's just move into creating a sustainable world where everyone has a home and everyone has basic, things that they need to prosper, not just to be alive, because we know that that's not enough.
Absolutely.
um
Living, not surviving, right?
Living, not surviving, exactly. And I think that like, if you were to look at the world 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, like certainly the times that we live in now would be like idyllic to them. Like an Ardra would would say, hey, look, you guys have like, before, like this many people died every year, and now it's like minuscule
Absolutely.
compared to that, and and things like that. So
Diseases and what have you.
disease and what have you, exactly. But I know what you're saying. It's like, at least to me, I feel more and more, and I hope this is something that I hope this is a trend that like grows and like changes humanity as rapidly as some of the other movements that we're seeing alive today are changing societal things. But I hope the non-war thing just like really blows up and gets, goes viral, as it were. You know what I mean? And I think what's threatening about North Korea to that ideology is that, at least with like countries like Russia, and even in the Middle East, where there's a lot of tension and fighting right now, there seems to be a connection that we can still have with the people of that country, in a sense. Like there are physical borders, but like people communicate via email, Twitter. Technology hasn't allowed us to like actually get to know Russian people on a one-to-one basis, or get to know a person living, in an Arab country on a one-to-one basis. Whereas in North Korea, they're completely blocked off. And
Yeah.
so we can't get to know them, and
I
they
mean,
can't
the
get to
only
know. Yes,
North
right.
Koreans
They
we know are those that have escaped
have
and
escaped,
talk
right?
about North Korea, and most of them find themselves fighting for their country and try to raise awareness about it.
But also many of them believe that, especially, America is Satan coming to get them, and so it's like, or at least that's what our best intelligence tells us about North Korea. But unfortunately, we don't really truly. I cannot go to North Korea just as a tourist. It's very difficult to do that and see for myself. Dennis Rodman has apparently, he would be someone who has been there, but unfortunately his view of it has only been through the Imperial Palace, or whatever, the Supreme Palace, or Supreme Leader,
Oh yeah, it's not a kind of
So
like
it's like, yeah,
live in the North Korean population's shoes for a month situation, is it?
no,
I
it's not. It's
mean,
definitely not. So
you're not sent there to just like live among the people, and no, it'd be very oppressing.
back to Ventax 2 though.
Absolutely, Pentax 2, the North Korea of the galaxy.
of the Federation.
No,
It's true.
absolutely not. It seems like a very peaceful, nice place to be, honestly.
What do you think though? Did you buy it? Do you think that like, or is it even, does it even matter? Like, is it the idea of infinite diversity and infinite combinations? It doesn't matter how far fetched a society is. Its possibility is, there are conditions that can create that extreme possibility. Which do you think?
Um. Okay, so yes, I do agree with what you said. Like, in any population can exist in any way. Um, I don't see any problem with that. But the population on Ventax 2, for example, I didn't find them that far fetched. They were a planet that were essentially in the history of the lore that they explain in this episode. They were a population that kind of became very industrial, polluted their planet. So their planet was struggling. They were struggling with their economy. There were a lot of people, from what I understand, they were suffering of essentially diseases, poverty, overpopulation, etc. From what
Right.
I gather, it was a dreadful place to be, kind of Soylent Green situation. And then so Mrs. Ardra pops up, or so it's told in the tales. Um, and from then on, they decide to clean up their planet, so that they started all these initiatives for like being more eco-friendly and et cetera, et cetera. And then 1,000 years later, we're at this point where they still do believe in these ancient texts. It's not that far-fetched, especially considering, like, the ancient texts, as they explain, no one really read about them. There's only a few scholars that paid attention to them, but just for studying. No one really cared until the tremors began, and then, I mean, they must have some sort of internet on their planet. And
Right.
someone said, like, have
Maybe.
you noticed that there are tremors
Yeah.
exactly when they were supposed to occur? And then tweeted hashtag OMG Adra. And then so everyone else got
That's
scared,
my
like,
new.
oh my god, so true.
That's the hashtag for when I post this episode on Twitter. It's gonna be OMG Ardra. It's like
OMG.
pretty awesome.
Oh, everyone's gonna understand, right? No, I mean, it seemed pretty plausible to me. This kind of situation, this kind of city
I think.
or planet.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, I struggled with it, but like what you said makes a lot of sense to me. I did think that like Ardra could have pulled off her scam had she not gone as far as she did, like including the Enterprise as her property, and like, you know egging Picard on, and like kind of, had she left well enough alone, maybe they
Mm.
would have been like, do you think that, let me ask you, do you think they would have been like, okay, these people are weird, we got our hostages back, they seem to be pretty convinced that she's the devil, let's move on, like, Do you think
I
there
don't
was a
know.
scenario that could have played out that way, or
Okay,
do you think?
so for sure, the fact that she started including the Enterprise affected their judgment, and they were like, "Oh no, you don't. Like
Right.
you're not taking the Enterprise. You're not taking us." And so they got angry straight away. But I mean, Picard was angry from the get go,
That's
and they
true.
said, but the moment she appears, she's like, "Who are you?" Like straight away, he's like, "Oh, this is a feisty one. I'm not impressed." He doesn't care for her at all. The woman
Right.
does not impress him. Um, I don't know. I think he would have kind of. Picard likes this kind of challenge, and he also likes being right.
Naturally, yeah, that's true.
It's kind of a perfect situation where not only can he investigate, but also prove his superiority. so, I mean, it's a win-win for him. Plus,
he
these guys look like a productive member of what the part of the Federation, maybe, or at least a Federation ally. These
Mhm,
guys look like
mhm.
a productive society. Even if they're not part of the Federation, which I can't remember what they are, they must at least have like good trading going on with them or whatever. You don't want them to become enslaved by some sort of random chick, the woman that
The
appears.
woman.
But
To those of you watching this, and like starting to get riled up about our references to chick and the woman. I don't know about you, Sean, but I feel like it's pretty safe to assume that you're all about, equality for women, and we're just like
oh,
having
absolutely,
a little laugh here.
that
I
goes without saying. I
um what is funny, I thought of, like, obviously this is something that could never have occurred in a previous rewatching, but when Ardra first appears, she says time's up, and I thought that was amazing because of the time's up movement that's going on right now. And so I was like, you could create a meme from Ardra from this episode for the time's up movement that could help
the
spread
Times
the
Up
word.
movement.
Do you know the time's up movement? Do you not
I
know
have
it?
no idea what the Times Up movement is.
Okay, so we started with there's
I see. Okay.
yeah. Oh, you looked it up. I didn't have to
Well,
explain it.
it's Time's Up. Okay, for people that are listening and do not know and don't want to look it up, Time's Up is a movement against sexual harassment founded in 2018 in response to the Weinstein effect and
Correct.
hashtag Me Too. I didn't know
Correct.
there was a hashtag Me Too, but I
There's a
mean, I
hashtag Me
assume
Too
it's
as
a
well.
hashtag Me Too. I also was
This episode of
sexually
Starfleet Boy
assaulted.
is showing that you are closer to this agrarian culture, the Ventaxians, than you are to a human, because you clearly are a little out of touch with current affairs, or at least human affairs.
I'm going to I'm going to say something that might not please you, but
Uh,
all this kind of stuff, be it sexual assaults, racial differences, that kind of stuff, it is very American specific, like United States specific. I'm not saying these kind of problems don't exist in other countries of the world. It's just that it tends to be the United States that makes a very, very big deal about these kind of situations, and therefore creates hashtags and movements and political parties and et cetera, et cetera.
wow, I never. That's
But you
actually.
don't realize that because you live
I
in the United
live in
States
the
of
system.
America,
Yeah, I
and
mean, like, I'm
everyone in the
exposed
United
to.
States of
Yeah.
America believe that United States of America is the most important thing, and and everything in the US is what happens in the world. But that's not true.
Yes.
I,
Okay. So wow. Okay. Without going too far astray from Star Trek, I don't think that that's shocking. It's a little like I have traveled outside of the United States, and I know that, like, that we're viewed a certain way here in the United States, and I will agree that it is vexing. Like, you're kind of bombarded by a lot of information, and, like, you know without straying too far from Star Trek, like, if you want to know just how batshit crazy it is in the United States right now, just look up things like what's happening with, like, Aziz Ansari, on that specific thread. Not to mention everything that's going on politically, and, like, the dramatic changes that are happening in the United States. So It's a weird time to be an American. It's the weirdest time to be an American, I think, in the history of being American. And I think that like as far as like, American self-importance and all those things, I will say that there are many of us that try not to focus on that and want to be a part of a world community and don't really um we don't really play to the old games of like dominance and in terms of like a country is the best country in the world or things like
Hmm.
that. Like many of us want the US to just fit in to a beautifully functional global community. um so what you're seeing, what you see coming out of our country is a reality that is true, and it's probably the predominant reality. But I think that there is probably a baffled majority of people that don't know how yet to counteract
Hmm.
this thing.
I can absolutely
um
believe that. It's
yeah,
just a
that are
vicious
trying.
circle because most media that we consume, most content that we consume as a world, comes from the United States. Be it movies, television series. I mean, even if they're filmed in whatever country, a lot of them from Canada now. They're American shows, American movies. A lot of people read like American books and what have you, and so
Yeah, I feel like the United States of America may have lost its
American
industrial edge
music.
or whatnot, but that certainly, our society did shift to an entertainment based society, and it has both great outcomes and then like some of the worst outcomes that you can imagine. But again, my hope is that at least in my lifetime, we can see some sanity restored to our republic. Or I might be like Queen Amidala and say, "So this is how democracy dies," with thunderous applause. But wow, this episode of Starfleet Boy got deep there, Sean. Thanks. It's like
I don't know if
here
that's
we
a
are.
good thing. I just openly attacked the United States of America and its citizens, but no.
No, yes, you did,
No,
but
I've
in
always
a
consumed.
loving way.
I've always consumed
It, as
American
a
content.
concerned friend would, yeah.
And I've always been fascinated with the culture. Um, and as a child, I always thought it would be awesome to be American, because I've always wanted to eat the same candy as I see in the TV series. I've always wanted to go to the same shops and understand the inside jokes from Americans. I've always wanted to
That's
be
really
part of
funny.
that. Um, it's
Well,
just
you're
now sometimes I have a lot of trouble um, concerning these specific kind of movements that exist. And so recently I've just stopped paying attention to them. If I was still following yours truly on Twitter, I probably would know about this, to be honest.
um wait, who are you not following?
Anthony Rapp.
Oh, that's right. Well, it's more than just Anthony Rapp, but I will say
I
that
know.
like I will say that like I'm glad that you are past wanting to be American, because I think, being other uh like nationalities, there's a lot of cool things. But you're all invited. Welcome. You have a closet full of candies for you here. Like you can like try them all. I am curious, what's one of the candies that you couldn't get where I guess this is where did you grow up, like in France was it, or New Zealand?
I grew
I
up in New
can't.
Zealand. I lived 12 years in New Zealand and then moved to France.
So in
Lived 12 years in France.
what candy couldn't
Um,
you get when you were a kid, and what what was the closest alternative that you want that you wanted?
I don't know. I don't really go for alternatives, but Twizzlers was a thing that
Twizzlers.
was a thing that intrigued me very much.
Red vines are better, by the way.
Oh, my bad. Excuse me. Well, okay, I'll tell you what. I moved to Canada and I tried Twizzlers, and it's the most terrible thing in the world. Um,
You got to get red vines. Get a hold of some red vines. See, oh man,
okay.
it seems like America only exports our crap candies to other countries.
God. The good old
I was.
Pop Tart.
Oh,
Um,
you what? You didn't have Pop Tarts
nope.
available?
I never knew
What?
about. I mean,
Okay, I'll give in to that. Pop Tarts are the bee's knees. They're pretty awesome. So okay.
But then I mean, yeah, I mean, I got a Pop Tart when I came to Canada, uh,
Did it like meet your
Oreo flavored or whatever it was, and I was like, eh.
No, because you've got to
Um,
go for the classic jelly filled ones. Those
oh
are the
my
ones
bad.
that with the pink
I
frosting and the
apologize.
sprinkles and the sprinkles on
I
the
dearly apologize.
top.
Okay, so for the people listening at home that don't really that don't really care, I will. And
Excellent. All right, back to back to Star Trek. That was an awesome tangent. So yesterday was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday we talked about the Star Trek Discovery episode that
the
just
Wolf
aired,
Inside.
The Wolf Inside, and you know, Michael Burnham was wearing that, you know, very sexy kind of lounging outfit
Mm.
that they wear in the Mirror Universe, right?
Oh,
Ardra's outfit in this
she is
episode reminded
doing a
me
longer version of that.
a longer version of that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the go-to sexy lingerie, isn't it?
I guess so. I thought it was really fun. That scene was one of the really nice ones because you could see how uncomfortable like Patrick Stewart, like I think nailed it in terms of his performance. But it was also
Mm.
especially funny when you were talking about Worf earlier because um he's beamed
Hey.
down. Hey. You missed like the most politically charged portion of the episode. You're just popping in.
I've been texting you. What episode are you doing? I have no
The
idea.
Devil's Due. It's the one with Ardra. You hate this episode.
Oh my god,
I
yeah, okay.
I tricked you. I tricked you. I got you on to to talk about an episode.
Isn't he
you
terrible?
hate.
Well, I'll tell you what. You're arriving too late because we just spent 20 minutes not talking about the episode and talking about the United States political climate. So,
Oh my gosh.
so I mean, sorry about that. You missed
And
it.
then
But
you also missed you kind of hopped in right at the point where we're talking about Ardra's sexy lingerie that she was wearing and how uncomfortable it made Captain
oh,
Picard.
you're gonna like this. We're comparing this episode that you dislike to Discovery, which you dislike. So,
I guess we're doing a Who Wore It Better segment. So Sean, now that since you've
That's
seen
funny.
both, who wore it better?
I'll burn him.
Okay, nice. Hey, Doctor, welcome back on the show. It's been a long time since we've seen you.
Oh, thank you.
If you're not already doing it, please record your separate audio. But if you're not doing it, forget it.
Just for you, I am.
Yes.
Just because you.
Thank
And
you,
and
thank you,
to, and
thank
to
you.
get you back on track, yeah, this episode kind of sucks. I don't know what you guys thought of it.
We haven't really gotten to that part yet. We were kind
haven't
of
even given.
like
We're just
gotten
talking
to
about
like
it.
what we thought about it, but
have you summarized
basically
it at least?
we
Yeah, we
we
have
definitely
summarized it.
we definitely
Okay.
summarized it.
Okay,
Oh, I missed
we
the
are
summary.
like semi-professionals. Okay, I'll tell you what. I don't think this episode sucks. I think it's kind of bland.
Bland is good, yeah.
Because I like the way that the episode knows you already know she's not the devil. Like, we're not idiots. We've seen Q, we've seen so many others. We know that this is just not true. We know that she's using holographic technology and what have you. But the episode doesn't try and pretend that it's something else. The episode just, straight off the bat, Picard is not fooled. You're not fooled. He gets back to the ship and says, she's a magician. And
the woman
so
he,
I like the woman. The woman is a magician. Apparently Picard refers to her multiple times as the woman. And this has him troubled, but no, I like the way that they don't treat you as an idiot. They're like, okay, you know, these guys know that it's all trickery and what have you. And the episode is more about how to deal with that. My issue is then it falls back into the traditional trial, because it would seem that we always get trials, be it in Star Trek or in a lot of science fiction. It always just comes back to a trial. I don't like trials. I understand the trial when it comes to like Data's humanity or Data's is he a sentient being? Is he alive? I understand that, but I don't know. I'm not even that fond of Q's trial, to be honest. I think that's really not the best part of the pilot.
Trials are like a reoccurring thing on Star Trek, because like it started in the original series. There's like the menagerie. You know, we just talked about this yesterday a little briefly, but you know, there's a lot of kind of trial situations throughout Star Trek history, and yes, sometimes they're real winners. Like I think, you know, so far we've seen the one where you know, Measure of a Man, that was like a really wonderful trial sequence. And then I think, is there one during the Pulaski era? I can't remember.
I'm
But
sure
there's
there is, yeah.
there's another trial one coming up soon too, the Drumhead, which is going to be in this season. And so I feel like that's something that's interesting. And in general, like American television seems to love the courtroom drama. Like Perry Mason was really big, and
I object.
and what was the one with Andy Griffith in it? What was
Matlock.
that? Matlock. We love Matlock. Did you ever hear of Matlock? Like, it's like a really good show too.
Matlock.
But yeah, I
I've
think
never seen it.
I think in this episode, again, I just kind of chalk it up to the ridiculousness behind it, because like it's just a bunch of gags and things like that, and it's not as memorable. In fact, I'd forgotten that there was even a trial sequence. I'd forgotten how the episode played out.
Really?
I kind of forgot about it.
Well, that's
like,
interesting, because the episode isn't about someone posing as the devil. The episode is about how to deal with that situation.
Right.
And eventually, like, how to deal with that situation. They could have tried to come up with something innovative, but they didn't. They just went for a trial. Like, oh well, let's have a look at the contract. Why is there a contract? But yeah.
But, well, of course, there's always a contract with the devil.
Of course,
the devil has no true power. It depends on the powers that be. Haha.
I love the Feklar.
The Feklar was really cool.
I love the Feklar.
Yeah, that
Feklar
was
cool.
the Kling. Oh, you remember
It's
that?
disgusting.
I watched the episode actually.
Oh, you actually watched
I
it?
rewatched
Wow.
it. And,
Holy shit!
Yeah, and
The doctor surprises me.
yes, I've come armed and prepared. But picking up on the whole trial thing, you know, I think the main reason is because it's cheap. You know,
Yeah,
it's cheap
absolutely.
to set up a trial. And this was an episode that was meant for Phase 2, Star Trek Phase 2. This is a pickup of one of their scripts. And it was reworked over the years until they finally made it in this season. And, you know, I mean, it's a cheap bottle show, really, when you think about it. It's only like, what, a couple of sets, and you're done. And
Are you gallantly holding up your library card right now?
no.
Is that what's in your hand?
No,
Okay, it's like,
no. It looks like it's another kind of it's a random card. I've been meaning to throw it away, but yeah, I just picked it up here. No.
Which now's the perfect time to pitch the library movements that you're a part of.
Yes, check out your public library. No, but I think that's the main reason that a lot of these shows do that trial format, is that it's so inexpensive, and it usually allows some actor to sort of, you know, take the floor and, you know, spotlight him or her, and so it's kind of a no-brainer in terms of production, and it's kind of a no-brainer in terms, you know, in terms of spotlighting a particular actor, which I think in this episode, I mean, I guess it's Picard.
Yeah,
I just don't
go
think.
back to Picard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
We've seen him act at this point. Sir Patrick Stewart. I mean,
yeah, but he's done. I mean, I honestly think he's done better. I'm not a huge fan of this episode, because I think it's just it should have been cheesier, you know, and I think it's something that I can totally see on like the old Buck Rogers show, and I just don't think it's a good match for Next Generation. Like when she's all coming on to him and she's in the bedroom, like I can totally see Jill Gerard.
so you think they didn't go far enough with it?
Yeah,
If they wanted to have this as like a corny kind of trial
corny.
situation where it's completely unbelievable or unthinkable that this would happen, then they should go further into whatever it was that they were doing.
Like, imagine if it had been Kirk, or like I said, Buck Rogers.
Well, Kirk would have definitely had a romantic liaison with Ardra.
Oh,
and they would have played the cheesy music, and it would have been like, But you get me? It's. I think the dynamics of that episode would have worked better in older television. You know, if it had been an older show, I think the updating just didn't really work because, it's like you said, there's really, I mean, Picard sees it right away, and the whole episode, I'm just wondering why does it take so long for the flagship of the Federation to figure out some creaky old ship out there using hollow projections can do this? I mean,
yeah, I don't think that we ever really got an explanation in episode of how she was able to make the Enterprise disappear, unless I missed that. But
they said that they found a ship, and
no, I know, but like specifically, like, how do you block out?
I always assumed that she hid it, not made it disappear. Like she had like a blackout for communications and found a way to like cloak the Enterprise.
But wouldn't the Enterprise on the other side recognize, like, our signals are not getting throh? Like,
exactly.
And also, like, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Enterprise,
we never got this.
Hey, I'm being the devil's advocate here. All right.
Oh my God!
Were
you waiting for that? Were you waiting for that?
No, I wasn't. I jumped on it.
Set it up for you.
That was so good.
I saw it. I was like, mine.
Very good. Very good.
Anyway, while we're on complaints, I will say that this is a general complaint with TNG. Every costume is always a onesie. They always have these kind of, and this whole city is like a onesie with capes.
I know, right?
Okay, now you're wearing one.
Yeah.
And the shuttle scene is terrible. Like, what is that shuttle that they're
the Elbaz?
Oh, the background was what was wrong with the very back of the shuttle? It looked like it just had no. It was just,
there was no
foam.
back to the shuttle. It was
foam.
Data and Picard sitting like,
I don't remember
in front of the window, and then the back of the shuttle is like literally just behind them, and it looks like it looks like that foam that you use in recording studios,
right?
Sitting there, and they're like all cramped inside it.
Yeah, it was terrible.
For no reason. It was like, you guys know how to do shuttles. Why are you doing it this way? Anyway,
that is kind of weird.
It was really bad. That's true.
Something that stood out to me in the beginning of the episode, when Data's kind of describing his acting influences and his acting techniques, and he mentions the method. You know, he mentions method acting, and he describes it as like antiquated. And Picard's even like, "Why would you use that form of acting? It's no longer used." Or, you know, like, it's assuming that method acting was for some reason at some point phased out because it was like obsolete, which I can't really understand, because I think method acting is like pretty much a way that, like, it's like one of the best.
You, sir, are not
some
from
of the
future.
Yeah, not only that,
you can't even begin to comprehend the new ways to act.
But I thought it was interesting that the writers chose to like choose method acting as something that they feel like should be, you know, antiquated, scoffed at. And I wonder how the actors themselves felt about that. But then the other time that it kind of like that idea or that kind of tone came up in the episode is when he's talking to Data, where he's like kind of looking through, you know, his files in his ready room, and he's talking to Data, and he's like, you know, he's like, I've been reading P.T. Barnum, who said there's a sucker born every minute. And then he's like, you know, as if like no one gets conned in the future or tricked or anything like that. And that one's a little hard to shake, because like Harry Mudd, like, like was like, you know, and like, and the outrageous, if we want to bring it closer to home, the outrageous Okana, like,
that's a great reference right there.
You know, and so on and so forth. So it's not like, to me, that it's like not well thought out, because like these characters should know what a con job is and like have been conned before. And so it just seemed a little like too high and mighty as far as the writing was concerned, like to kind of say like, oh, we live in a society that's so perfect, but it really, you know, the show itself shows evidence that it's not. So I wonder what you guys thought of that.
I agree with that. I think again, I think it's the product of just updating the script and just trying to work a script that was meant for a different kind of show into Next Generation, because I don't think you just had the right characters for that script. I mean, I think I would have enjoyed this episode, like I said, if I'd seen it on another show.
Like in the
But
80s, like in the
like in
early
the
80s.
80s, like
Yeah.
a something where it was just a little bit cheesier, a little bit campier. Um and I think that shows it, that what you just pointed out. I just don't think the story matched well with, I mean, I guess you could have done an interesting episode where something claiming to be the devil shows up and is going to take over the society. But like, I mean, like you were pointing out, they just kind of like concentrate on, oh, well, you have this contract, and like, how about actually showing what this was doing on the outside of the courtroom to the people of
But
this
then, as you
this
said
planet.
earlier, you have to start filming people
Right,
in cities.
right.
Whereas we only got that one shot of the city, and then we got
That
the courtroom.
exterior, yeah.
I will say, when I was a kid, though, that one shot of the city that they show maybe 3 times throughout the episode, as a
It's the
kid,
same shot. Yeah, that's right.
it
First
is the
it's
same shot,
burning,
except
then it's not
yeah,
burning.
then it's
It's
not
like,
burning.
yeah.
And you got people running, and then people that are not running. But as a kid, that opened my imagination a lot, because I felt like I was seeing a city, I was seeing a planet on Star Trek. As an adult now, we watch things like Game of Thrones. When you see that, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, it's the same shot, they're reusing it, plus it's a matte painting. But as a kid, it was interesting, because I really felt like I was seeing the city.
Right. No, it's true.
But then,
But
yeah, you have to start filming a lot of people to do that.
or you could have done something like that. What's that Doctor Who episode where they're stuck on that ship and someone's being possessed with the
Oh,
10th
isn't it
Doctor?
called 47 or 49 or
42
42?
and
Is it called 42?
right, and it's a small group of people, but they're all terrified of this thing. It's kind of hopping from person to person, and they believe it's gonna.
Well, and
So I mean, there's different ways they could have done it, but
there's
I just think
also well,
it wasn't very convincing.
Doctor Who actually has a devil episode in the modern Doctor Who era, which is the Impossible Planet and
Oh, right,
the
yeah, that one.
right, and that one, and I think that is like Sean, as a reference for you when you go watch Doctor Who finally, if you ever do.
Excellent episode.
Those
Yeah.
two episodes freaked the f out of me. Like, it made me really question my adamant disbelief in the devil. So it was like,
And it was done with a very small cast.
and a very small cast. It's true.
Yeah, I just don't think the planet. One of my main complaints is that the planet that they were trying to save made no impression on me. And I think that's a problem that a lot of these Next Generation episodes have, is that a lot of these planets come off as kind of bland. The people running it are just come off as not being very interesting, and you don't feel the tension of like, oh my god, this planet's going to be run by this woman, this devil or whatever. I just didn't care.
Yeah,
Really.
absolutely. In defense of the episode, though, I don't think that was the objective. I think the objective was mostly to show how our beloved crew managed to outwit this person, rather
Yeah, I
than
think it's
show the effect that this person has on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that the planet is bland and that the people that run it are bland. I like the president, or whatever he is. I think I don't know. He's not hideous. He's not mean. He seems gullible enough, but he seems
Yeah.
like a nice. He seems like a nice guy. I mean, I'll go see a movie with him, whatever. I mean, but other than that, yeah, he is pretty vanilla.
I think ultimately where the show probably, from what I'm hearing from the three of us, and it seems like what happened was they should have gone more, like, they should have made it more obvious that this episode was lighthearted and gaggy. And I think that, like, maybe the inclusion of the Ventaxian civilization, which is as an idea very interesting. In addition to like these obvious kind of like incongruities with what's already been established and all that stuff, kind of like took us out of that fun and made us start thinking too much about some of the things that maybe the writers were like, oh, hopefully no one will emphasize that. But instead, we are emphasizing those things. Whereas what should have been, like what you said earlier, Humbert, is like, maybe they should have gone even cheesier with it so that we stayed in that gag, throughout the whole thing.
So it's a one or the other situation. It's kind of like either you go in the route of pure destructiveness and the planet is like kind of it's an apocalypse and you show that kind of stuff, or you go in the other way, in the other direction completely and make it all cheesy and corny and have it all comedy
and fun and lighthearted, right?
But this kind of tried to do both and ended up doing none.
Yeah, I agree with that absolutely. Did you guys get the impression that they perhaps wanted to bring her back in a later episode?
No.
I see where you go. It took me a moment because I was thinking, okay, did they want her to become some sort of Harry Mudd styled recurring annoying character?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so. Or that's not the impression the episode gives me.
Because of that ending's like, I'll see you again, Picard, or something. It's one of those, cheesy, like, when they take her off.
She does, doesn't she? That's right.
Yeah, but then, she just ran into a comet and blew up and everyone died, so... No, I don't know. But... No, I don't know.
No,
she was... That impression.
She was killed by a much crueler adversary. Ratings.
She actually returns in one of the novels, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I looked it up.
Do you know what's the skinny on that novel?
Oh, I'd have to look it up, but
again,
they actually it's set at post Nemesis, so it's pretty far into the continuity, and I forget why Picard digs her up, and they use her ship and everything. Oh, and then there's like a tension between him and. Because he's married to Beverly Crusher at this point, and I guess there's like a little sexual tension or whatever in the book. But again, I thought all that tension was wasted. I didn't buy it for a minute. It wasn't fun to watch. It was just kind of painful, and I'll
tell you what, Sir Patrick Stewart plays he plays the role of Picard that is kind of awkward. In that scene, but I think he genuinely is kind of unsettled when it's Marina Sirtis that's got a finger rubbing across his chest.
Yeah.
He kind of looks like...
Yeah.
But it seems more like a real emotion than actual acting.
It's method acting.
It's method acting,
yeah. According to Memory Beta, Ardra also appears in the TNG comics Shore Leave in Shanzibar, Consorting with the Devil, Dirty Work. So it's a 3-parter in the comics. And then she also appears in something called Slings and Arrows, which is probably the ebook that you're referring to, and The Oppressor's Wrong, or that might be the ebook that you're referring to. So it's interesting that, like... She must have had an impression, so I might have been wrong about the ratings, as you said, to have come back in so many different works.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, okay, wait. Yeah, it's obvious I didn't. Okay, now I know why. All right, so that answers that question. I guess we're going to come to the rating portion. That was good.
I'll tell you what, I've got a little something to say, which I noticed, because at some point, Geordi talks about Z particles.
Oh.
He says there was a peak in Z particles when she uses her technology, when the ship uses technology. Yeah. That's how they were able to pinpoint that.
Right.
Z particles are the same things that kind of appear when Amos kills Tasha Yar.
Whoa.
He has the same, like, there's a spike in Z particles when he kills Tasha. So it's kind of like a recurring thing when there's great force being used.
That's
or whatever.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
Huh.
Hashtag Z particles. Okay, very cool. You
got too much hashtags now.
You can always tell when I'm on Memory Alpha because the page is gray. So then, like, watch when it. It's like I'm not just in the witness protection program. I noticed you got the book out.
I have the
Doctor.
book.
So what fun facts are we gonna learn?
Star Trek compendium here, and yes, this is a show that predates Next Generation to at least 1977.
Wow, year before I was born.
Yep. And let's see. It's Devil and Daniel Webster plot, originally unearthed during the Next Generation's third season story pinch. Oh, apparently it was written by somebody who worked on the show Wings. You remember the comedy Wings?
I do remember Wings.
Wings, yes. All right.
Wow. Do you know anything about Wings? What, are you watching television in the background, Doctor? Is that television in your background?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
How dare he?
How dare you?
How dare. Familiar actresses.
I know nothing about Wings.
It's a cheesy 90s sitcom?
90s, I think. 90s
sitcom?
90s. It was kind of like towards the end of Cheers.
It's about private pilots. It's a spin-off of Cheers, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was not a spin-off of Cheers. No, it was not a spin-off of Cheers. It was
The Golden Girls?
No,
I watched Cheers with my grandma.
Anything.
Ooh.
But they would guest star like on Wings or whatever. But anyways, familiar actresses who tried out for the role or were considered. They did not try out, they were considered, included Adriana Barbeau, who is of course known as one of John Carpenter's favorite actresses. She's in Escape from New York and The Fog. And this part went to the actress who eventually played, is it Audra?
Yeah, Audra.
She tried out for the part of Tasha Yar long, long ago.
Oh, what a weird Z particle connection.
Wow. Was that done on purpose? the thing that killed Tasha Yar kind of brings Audra
That's kind of weird
into the mix. That's done on purpose,
weird,
right?
Right?
Very suspicious. Very suspicious.
These Z particles bear further investigation.
Yeah.
And let's see, what is it?
I wonder if there are Z particles on Star Trek Discovery now. I've got to go back and listen to all the techno babble.
Yeah. See, if I were making a show, I would include all of this stupid things. I would. I mean, it would be so fun just to go through all of the deep cut ridiculousness of Star Trek and try to use it.
These are not even deep cuts. These are like buried cuts.
Buried cuts.
Wings was
Alpha or something.
Wings was created and produced by Cheers veteran David Angle, Peter Casey, and David Lee. The trio would later create the sitcom Frasier, which was a spin-off of Cheers. Characters from Cheers occasionally made special guest appearances on Wings.
Yeah, but it was not a spin-off, right?
Right.
And the book confirms that the Klingons actually have no devil. Picard is described as the guardian of the hereafter. But the episode Day of the Dove, back in the original series, establishes that the Klingons actually have no devil.
But she establishes herself as the guardian of whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, she says it's where dishonored Klingons go.
Yeah.
Right.
And Worf's all offended, like, no.
Right. Well, it's weighing on his mind because he feels he's disgraced.
Dishonored.
Whatever.
Will he be redeemed?
Will he?
Will there be redemption?
Tune in.
More will there be redemption part 1 and 2? Will that happen for Worf? Is it ahead? Are there any more notes you guys have on this episode?
I do not.
I have a random note, as I sometimes have random notes.
Mm-hmm.
The way Ardra sits on Picard's chair reminded me of the way Jayla sits on Kirk's chair and beyond.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yes, you're right.
Fancy, it's just funny.
That's funny.
True.
That's true.
Not many people sit on Picard's chair that way.
No, but then again, not many people sit on Kirk's chair either. But I don't think it is a reference because apparently Simon Pegg went back and watched TOS and Enterprise before writing Beyond, but that was it. So, and I mean, they wouldn't have sat down and said, you know.
And Jason Isaacs is sitting on his chair that same way in that
in that one promotional
in that
shot.
picture, that promotional shot.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say. I don't know what's going on that show.
I have a question for you, Doctor. So you're not even chapter 2, not even watching. No. You're not
season
watching.
2. I'll catch you then.
You're gonna watch
season 2. I'll catch you at the premiere.
That's interesting. Okay.
Later, guys.
No, wait. Can we know why? Later. Oh my gosh.
The show sucks.
All right. I'd love to dive in
Star
with
Trek
you
show.
because I think it's just becoming really good now in chapter 2.
How many episodes in? Huh?
We're 2 episodes into chapter 2, and I think there's
no. That's not how television works, sir. How many
11.
episodes in
10
to this
and then
season?
11.
11. Thank you. Thank you.
But it was worth the wait. There's a lot of cool, whatever. We'll talk when we get to season 2. We'll see how you feel.
There's so much great television out there that I just don't have the time. I'm sorry. By the way, I'm going to plug a show that I've been watching. It's called Legion.
Legion.
It's on FX. No one's watching it, but it's the guy who also does the show Fargo, television version of Fargo. Noah Hawley.
Fargo is the most amazing thing ever.
Well, this show Legion is visually just amazing, and it's 8 episodes.
The show about Professor X's son.
You know what? It's really not. It's
okay.
Not. And you are.
So check it out.
I associated Legion to The Gifted. Gifted.
No, please. No.
And that show is probably.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's the definition of trash, isn't it? So
yeah.
But that's the one that you can't stop watching, right, Sean?
No, I never started that. I watched The Inhumans. Come on,
Inhumans.
It's a different kind of trash.
Which I saw the first episode for free and is awful. God awful. I challenge anybody
for the premiere of that.
I challenge anybody not to get hooked by the 3rd episode of Legion. I just want to put it out there. That's what I'm watching instead of Discovery.
Oh wow.
And
on Starfleet Boy, we have to watch Star Trek Discovery, but I have to say, for my part, I'm actually enjoying it a lot more these last couple of episodes.
Chapter
but anyways,
2, is off to a very good start.
All right.
He doesn't care. It's fine.
All right. Shall we give this episode our rating? I'll go first. I give this episode a 4.
Oof.
I give it a 3.
A 3.
Oof.
I would never watch this episode again intentionally.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with a 4 as well.
Nice. So we can average out at about a 3.8, I would say, because two strong 4s and a 3. Well, that was good. I will check out Legion on your recommendation. I hope you will reconsider Star Trek Discovery, but I also don't want you to get high blood pressure or, any medical conditions that would hinder your health if it's truly vexing you as much as it seems to be, which I think it is.
I think Gary and I are in the same.
No, he switched too. Gary's
what?
back.
Really? I thought he
Gary's
was vexed.
back. No, you should. if you're not gonna watch Discovery, at least watch the last couple of episodes of Starfleet.
Oh, I watch you guys is what I do.
Oh, okay.
And I really enjoy all of your discussions, even though I don't watch the show. I think your episodes discussing it are much more entertaining than watching the series itself.
Thank you. But Gary's back.
That is a compliment. I mean,
yeah, that's very nice.
Doing a great job.
Thank you. Anyways,
All right.
but just if you are all caught up with all your other television shows and you just happen to have that extra time, take a Xanax.
Then take a moment to watch
or have some chocolate
True
milk. You do watch True Detective, don't you?
You know what? I have to watch that first. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
And you have to watch Mindhunters too. I don't know if you're
American Crime Story.
There we go. There's so much television to watch.
It's
man.
a tough landscape. It's
The Expanse. If you haven't started watching that,
The Expanse. There we go. I just finished watching Longmire. Yeah, no, man. There's too much television to watch.
there's a lot of stuff to watch.
Yeah,
all I'll say is that I agree with you, and I have a very limited time to watch television, and I've chosen to do this, but most of my television is taken up with rewatching Star Trek: The Next Generation. So when I do have time for television, it's like rewatch Star Trek: The Next Generation. Thank goodness right now nothing else is on. Like Doctor Who's on hiatus right now, and so is Game of Thrones, and so is Westworld. So I've really a little extra time, but I haven't watched any. Yeah, Westworld.
It's another show that you need to be watching.
It's a great sacrifice you're making. I salute you, Sarah. I salute you.
All right.
How does the Mirror Universe do it? It's like this, right?
It's like that.
Right. Salute you, sir.
The Empire.
The little one, the nephew is waiting.
It's beckoning. For me. Yes. Well, we're just about finished here. So thank you for popping in at the end there, Doctor. And Sean, thank you for joining me on this impromptu little journey here. And so that's it for The Devil's Due and this episode. We'll see you next time. Live long and prosper.
All right.